Hi, Pratik. Thanks for doing this. We have been trying to call you on this podcast for a very long time, and you were traveling and all that stuff. And thanks for taking this time out from your busy schedule and coming to this podcast by Beekaylon. It's called Spinning Values.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and my apologies we couldn't do this earlier. Excited to be here.
That's completely fine. So, Pratik, I mean, we have all seen the Shark Tank episode. We've known a little bit about you, but I don't think people who are listening know much about your childhood, your growing up years. So why don't we start from there? How was your childhood? Where did you grow up? What was the kind of education you had?
Interesting question. Uh, so, see, basically, my father has a family business in textiles. It's a small business, but just operated by him. So, he was the youngest of all his brothers. Grew up in his native, which is a small town called Junjunu in Rajasthan. Being the youngest and growing up in a village, during that time, of course, he was the most notorious kid, never into studies. So at the young age of 15, he ran away from his village to Nepal, joined a sari shop there as a salesman. So that's how he started his journey. Shifted to Calcutta, started a commission agency business in textiles, but primarily focusing on fabrics. Then moved to Bombay, slowly, graduated to a yarn fabric manufacturing business. So, you know how most traditional family setups in India are, as a young kid, you're always expected to spend your vacations in office, ya dukan, depending on the kind of, setup your family has. So, my journey was no different. Since school days, my vacations, college vacations were always in office, sitting next to dad, looking at him do his business. I've known most of his clients from a very, very early age. So I wouldn't say I knew textiles from an early age, but at least I had the opportunity to get an exposure into that space from an early age, right? I was always told that, the business my father has built on his own, although the extended Gadia family has always been in textiles, but my father's business is something that he's built. So I was always told that I have to take care of that. So the journey was always supposed to be that, I spend some time there after my graduation and then do like an FMB, family managed business program from the likes of either SP Jain or NMIMS. So, in line with that, narrative, I full-time joined the family business after completing my graduation, which I did from Bombay itself, Mumbai. Spent about a year there. And that's when I realized I can't do this. So I was completely, I don't know what's the right word for it, but having spent one full year in that business, I realized that was not my calling. I was always more attracted towards the startup side of things. And this is about 2011. So I read an article by Paul Graham, the founder of Y Combinator in the US, got really attracted to that and got, this startup bug. Very difficult for me to convince my family that, I want to not pursue the family business. I want to start something on my own. Because my father is a great salesman and unko convince karna bahut difficult hai. So finally that happened. Went to Warwick, did my master's in innovation entrepreneurship. A very practical course. We didn't have any exams. The idea was to work on one business model for a year, kind of shape that up and then start that. So, that's how my childhood has been, fairly in the family business, but also, like I mentioned about my family background, my mom was always, being the only son, I have to be like the master of all trades, right? So while growing up, I was part of every sports I could play. So school football team, center forward, captain of cricket team, did athletics also for a while. So sports mein, like all over there. Very active in college also, college festivals, created 2 festivals of my own. Had a band when I was growing up in 2006 to 2008. We used to play Metallica covers. I'm a big metalhead since I've been growing up. So yeah, tried to do whatever I could in the limited time that we had apart from, school and colleges.
Okay, amazing. So, good you told me that you would go and visit your father's factory, because I was going to ask you that, how much exposure you got, so that we already now know that, okay, you were visiting his factory and probably you saw the machines and you understood a little bit, even because subconsciously sometimes it happens, even when you're there, you kind of pick up on things which you don't know that you are doing it, and later only in life you realize, okay, I mean, that can happen. So, okay, so TK, you went for education and you came back, and what made you think that this industry is ready for disruption? Probably a massive disrupt. So, I mean, where I was coming from, I probably know because we work with this industry that it has been traditionally a family run business. So, but what was it that made you think that, okay, this is the industry that is ready for a massive disruption? See, one is that you know about the industry, but I'm sure there are other calculations that go into it. So my focus question is, what are probably few things that made you realize that, okay, this industry is ready for a massive disruption?
Sure. So just a small correction there. The family business that I'm mentioning about, we don't have any factories. We get job work done. So I definitely grew up, in factories where, we would get our job work done. But yeah, of course, as you said, it's not just textiles in India. I think textiles globally is family dominated. Right? Look at the massive, large luxury global fashion brands also. All of them are family operated and then got acquired by, say, a PE or a large group and then got consolidated there. But mostly globally, it's the same culture. Now, of course, being family operated has its own challenges and has its own advantages also, right? As far as disruption is concerned, uh, so see, change is the only constant, right? When I came back, I wanted to definitely start something on my own. That's why I went to Warwick to do that particular course. But somehow, my dad being a great salesman, he again convinced me to join the family business. So spent about 6 years there. And the next 6 years that I spent post my master's in the family business, I was mainly looking at yarn sourcing and fabric production. While doing that, I was facing a lot of issues with respect to yarn sourcing, right? Some technical issues, some supply chain issues, but I wouldn't think there would be any order which, we would not get any issue or that would run very smoothly. So doing that day in, day out for years, every week, every month, for 6 years, finally it came to a point where I got slightly frustrated with, the fact that how the supply chain was completely broken. So it was more of an empathetic journey. It was not like it was a very logical, calculated decision. You looked at a few business models, you look at the opportunity, the market size, the time, and all of that. Utna fancy journey nahi tha. It was clearly a very empathetic journey where I felt that I'm facing this problem, and definitely this has to be the same sentiment across the value chain. So that's how the Yarn Bazaar journey started. It was definitely not a calculated approach, but because the pain point was so high, and yarn is very, very, it's the building block for textile, right? You look at any M product, whether it's a clothes we wear, which is part of the fashion industry, or whether it's your curtains, bed sheets, or pillow covers, which is part of the home furnishing industry, or let's say technical textiles like the car seat covers, or maybe the chair you're sitting on, or you go to a restaurant, you see table mats, which are textile fabrics, or your dusting cloth, your carry bags. So textile is all around us. And when you look at any of these products, it's nothing but yarn. Right? The t-shirt you're wearing, उसमें खाली yarn है. Yarn के ना hardly कुछ और component रहेगा. So because yarn is a building block, it was very clear to me that we have to start solving for yarn and not fabrics or apparels, because the family business was in fabrics. So it was merely, your own pain point that you feel that, a lot many others would have the same. And definitely the supply chain is broken. So it is time for us to start kind of, solving for that broken supply chain problem. Whether the industry is ready or not, I think, we've seen multiple examples globally, whether it's with the likes of Airbnb, Today, Airbnb is fairly present in India, so we also know about it. But how the journey started is this failed thrice. Can you imagine the founders started it thrice? They failed and they still were very persistent about it because the market was definitely not ready, right? The consumers were not ready. The hosts were not ready. The entire accommodation space was, dominated by hotels, right? People who
Right.
had certain inventory which were, given as a corporation. So the concept of Airbnb was very, very different. Nobody was ready. Nobody knew what that model is about, how that works and all of that, right? There's a massive threat. If I'm, for example, if you are a host, I'm a guest, right? I book a room in your house. How do I, how can I be confident about my safety? Or for that matter, anyone, anywhere in the world. So
Correct.
sometimes when you have a large conviction, I think it doesn't matter if the market is ready or not. You just go for it.
Amazing. Okay. So I don't think I've ever heard any startup founder say that it was empathy that was the reason, So that's really good to hear. And it has those Indian values behind it also, I think. So okay, so acha, so you now point has come where you have probably chalked out your path and you have realized, okay, this is the industry ready for disruption. Then lot of people have ideas, but where people lack is the execution. So how like so एक काम करते हैं, before we come into execution, let's just jump into Yarn Bazaar. So why don't you tell us what is Yarn Bazaar? Say for somebody who doesn't know anything about it.
Okay, that's an interesting take.
Yeah,
Uh, in that case, I would say that Yarn Bazaar is a purpose, right? We're not a company, we're not a business, we are actually a mission. Like I mentioned about my background, I've seen my father build whatever we have today because of this industry. And not just him, if you look at Indian, industry, I mean, Indian businesses, most of the larger groups we have today, whether it's the Birlas, the Ambanis, Adanis, most of these guys started their journey with textiles. So textiles is very deep, right? It's not, I mean, it's one thing to say roti kapda makan, which we've heard millions of times since we were kids, basic necessities, essentials of humankind and all of that. But
right.
if you look at it globally, you will find many people without any food or without any shelter, right? But it's very difficult to find someone without any piece of clothing. And the emotional connect is so deep that, when a new human life is born, when a new human kid is born, the first foreign element they interact with is a textile fabric. कपड़े से उसको पोंछ के कपड़े में लपेट के
Correct.
रखते हैं. So it's very very deep, right? So when I got tired of the supply chain problems while doing yarn sourcing for our business, and the concept started. Initially, as we discussed earlier, we knew that the market may not be ready. It won't be easy. It's going to be very challenging. But what really kept us going is that we had a vision defined from day one, which is we really want to organize this large unorganized industry. Textiles in India is highly decentralized. 80% plus is SMEs, right? Across the value chain, whether it's ginning or yarn manufacturing or fabric or apparel, any of that. So when you have such a large industry with such large economic impact, with massive employment generation, massive export numbers, but most of it being dominated by the top 20% only, the vision was clearly defined, right? Business models kept changing. I'm sure it will continue to keep changing. But the idea was always that it's a very purpose-led marketplace. We really want to promote textiles globally. We really want to encourage the right growth of textiles, right? That is why, we do certain activities which has nothing to do with our business model. Whether it's a podcast we do, our newsletters, some of the initiatives we do. We recently started with a new initiative for World Environmental Day, which is promoting sustainability. Now, sustainable in India is a very, very small market, right? From a business model, it makes no sense right now. But we still do it because we know it's the right thing to do. And we can only do all of that because it's a very purpose-led marketplace that we are building.
Okay. Okay.
So to answer your question briefly, the Yarn Bazaar is a purpose-led marketplace where we're trying to kind of solve the problem of broken supply chain and working capital constraints in textiles, but specifically to yarn. So the idea is to connect a yarn manufacturer with a consumer directly, solve for their pain points, and accordingly help become a partner in progress for both of them.
Okay. Got it. So now say, just sort of delve deeper into the product and what Yarn Bazaar is. If I am a textile manufacturer, old company, never had, wherewithals or never had that motivation to brand myself or to, market myself. How can a Yarn Bazaar be a value add in my life? And just second question stemming out of it is, I mean, we have seen that sometimes family-led businesses, even these, it's difficult to convince these people also to sort of tell them that, you need a change. Maybe you need a brand for your thing. So how do you sort of solve for that problem?
Sure. So in that case, firstly, you are our ideal target audience. So if you're a
Okay.
fabric manufacturer who's been running the business say, for a few generations, right? You may be a small business setup or a large business setup. Typically, the tangible outcomes you want from someone you're sourcing yarn from is number one, great quality. Number two, at right price. And number three, timely delivered to your factory, right? These are the top three tangible elements you would look for. So as a sourcing platform or as a managed marketplace, the first thing we kind of assure you is that if you're sourcing through us, or see, there's no compulsion, right? There's the reason why we do not have any membership or any onboarding phase is because we want to give them the confidence without locking anything on day one, right? So the idea is कि ठीक है आप yarn खरीदते हो, you may share your yarn requirements with X number of suppliers. Please also do share with us. We will try our best to assure you the right price at the right quality and timely deliver to your factory. But how we really do it and how we really empower your businesses. So say, let me take a step back a little and take a very layman example. You're feeling thirsty, you walk into a store, you ask for a Bisleri, right? The store may not have Bisleri, but they have Kinley. So you have no other option but to buy Kinley because you're thirsty. Right. Similarly, in most legacy industries or most traditional supply chains, when you reach out to a supplier for a certain yarn requirement, every trader or every agent is only representing X number of manufacturers, X number of products. So what they offer you is definitely amongst that basket, right? So for example, Kinley in this matter. But the problem is that all of different fabric manufacturers, different weavers or different knitters have different machinery setups. Right? For the same machinery setup, your fabric requirement may be different. So if you were to open your wardrobe, you'll see 10 shirts, but the 10 shirts, each of them have a different quality, each of them manufactured on a different machinery. Right? So today when you reach out to your suppliers and you get 3 or 4 different offerings from different suppliers, traditionally how you would take purchase decision is you will just compare the prices and the quality and then take a purchase decision. So let's say you've received quotation between 300 rupees to 305 rupees, min max. Right? Most buyers would take a decision with respect to the lower price offering, which is 300 in this case. The efficiency of that yarn on your machinery may be, let's say, 85%. Right? Whereas once we understand your machine setup and your fabric requirement, we can recommend you a product which may be slightly more expensive in terms of the absolute value of the product. Let's say 303 rupees. But if the efficiency of that on your machinery is 95%, it ends up being much cheaper. And not just price advantage, but because the efficiency is high, you are able to reduce your production loss, you're able to fulfill your customer's order on time. So that's the kind of insight we also do.
Okay, so I understood your model. I understand the benefits that it has. My question is that how do you reach out to these manufacturers? Like, do you have an in-house team that does that, or is it just organic, or taking cue from that is like, just tell us about your growth and how it has grown from when you started and now.
Sure. So, we were discussing this earlier. We shifted to Bangalore very recently in February. So until we were in Mumbai, we've never had any sales team. We've never had people on, as feet on the street, meeting with clients or with suppliers. In fact, most of our high value transacting buyers and suppliers had not met anyone from our team. And we had a very small team until now. So I think I was very lucky that when I was about to start the Yarn Bazaar, someone I had met and I used to meet, random people just to get some wisdom from each of them. One person had told me a very, very novel advice, which, I still have it ingrained in me when it comes to building a business. He said, and I quote, Pratik, don't focus on building 100 customers, focus on building 10 fans. 10 fans will give you a longer and much larger business than those 100 customers, because that leads to customer advocacy, right? So that's how we started. The idea was always, creating a phenomenal customer experience, something that, will be very delightful for them, which will convert into customer advocacy, then leading to word of mouth. So initially, most of the buyers and suppliers we got actually ended up referring us to, so buyers would refer us to other buyers, other suppliers, supplier would do the same. So the network effect kicked in, which also allowed us to stay lean, stay frugal without, building a very large sales team across and all of that.
Okay, amazing. So it's organic, and you trust more on organic rather than pulling people into you. You'd rather have testimonials and successful projects being undertaken which spread the word and word of mouth, and that's always considered the best marketing strategy across all the industries.
It's like, in any transaction, there are two behaviors. Either it's a buy or it's a sell, right? What, we were discussing earlier is we've never believed in selling. We want to create a positioning where people buy from us. That can only happen if, so for example, you come across an ad campaign, the likelihood of you buying into that product is very low. But if a friend of yours or someone you really trust recommends you another product, the likelihood is very high.
I completely agree. So one question that I always asked myself also, and more we worked with textile, and it's like a question that I had, does do brands matter in like textile manufacturing, or is it heavily commoditized? And what is your take on it? Does it even matter for a company to create a brand of their own? And like that's probably a question out of the Yarn Bazaar purview, but you have been in this business since years, so what I'm curious to know what is your take on it.
See, if you were to ask anyone who's leading a textile business, of course, you know what kind of reaction you would get. But if you were to ask all of them one question कि आप जब market में कुछ भी खरीदते हो कुछ भी any product, any service, or you're buying any product or any service online on Amazon or any other website, say a Dunzo or wherever you are, right? What are you buying? Are you buying into a brand or not? And most likely people are buying into a brand, right? The mobile phones they are using is an iPhone, right? It's a brand. The cars they're using is a brand. Everything from the moment we wake up in the morning, from the toothbrush we're using to a toothpaste we're using to our shampoos and our body washes, anything. I mean, everything is a brand, right? But
Hmm.
what happens is the moment we walk into the office, we forget all of that.
Hmm.
Right now, on the same question, when a weaver is buying a yarn, let's say a cotton weaver, right?
Hmm.
There is a very high likelihood they will ask their supplier कि मुझे ट्रायन का धागा चाहिए, मुझे वर्धमान का धागा चाहिए, मुझे नार का धागा चाहिए. Right? Why is that
Okay.
behavior happening? Because for them, trident material is perceived as a good quality material, and they don't mind paying a price premium for that, right? Because they know कि quality consistently high आएगा. I don't have to
Hmm.
worry about quality ये रॉड का अच्छा है या खराब है.
Get it.
Right. So if that
So
behavior already exists in our individual lives and in our businesses also, that does reflect that brands do matter. And it is very important for you to build a brand.
get it. So what we are coming to is that yes, for everyone listening, if you are a textile manufacturer, brands do matter. So work on it and create that branding. It's absolutely important. So I completely agree with you. Now tell me one thing. Now we are probably getting into the second half of the thing, and we'll probably start winding down after this. I mean, textile industry seems from the outside it seems like a very boring industry. Okay, so you are a young guy in this industry from a different space. Okay, you have the technical angle, tech angle, startup angle, which probably makes it more interesting. But uh, and it is a family owned business that we have already established most of the time. But if there are young people, because there are a lot of students who watch this, a lot of people who are doing textile engineering and textile design who listen to this podcast. So I mean, as a young guy, what is your advice to them? How can they make this journey interesting? If somebody has to set up a manufacturing company, yarn manufacturing company, can he do without? Is this the right time for him to do it? Because it's a capital intensive industry. It has been a traditionally family owned industry. Can a new person come in and set up a textile plant, or for new people, what would you want to tell them about this industry, and how can they can find their careers in it?
Sure. So, see, number one, it's a large industry, right? Whenever you're building a new business, the top three elements, at least, this is personal to me. Some may have a different opinion. But for me, to start any business, three elements are very, very important. Number one, the market size has to be huge. Imagine if you're building a business for a market size which is as small as 10 million, आप 10% market share नहीं भी लोगे तो 1 million का market size is a very small market size, right? So textiles is a very large market size. India is about $200 billion roughly. Right. Number two, it's a highly unorganized space, which means there is a massive opportunity to enter and kind of, become a streamlined solution. Right. And number three, the margin profiles are decent. It's not a fully commoditized. I know that most people in the industry believe it's a commoditized industry, but if you start looking at balance sheets of large players, you will realize that there is massive EBITDA levels, sitting there. So these three elements make textiles very, very attractive. Now, of course, we've already discussed that it's largely family owned, it's very decentralized, all of that. But if you've seen the last 2 years in a global behavior, you would have noticed that there are multiple startups across the world coming in the textile industry. There's a startup called SmartX, which is basically doing AI sensing for fabric manufacturing, right? Which helps you, prevent any defects in your fabrics, which is then leading to lesser landfills and all of that. So there are so many great innovation and textile happening globally. I think it's not just that अगर आपको textile में enter करना है because of the large markets and all of that. It has to be a manufacturing unit. It could be a manufacturing unit, or it could be a service provider or a enablement to the industry. Right? Everyone has heard of a brand called H&M, right? It's a large global fashion brand. What most people wouldn't know is that H&M also has a venture arm. And as part of their venture arm, they invest in textile technology companies.
Okay.
Right? Which showcases the fact that abhi market is ready and waiting for good innovation, good disruption to happen. And if that is there, traction milega. So my first advice is that don't think twice. It's a large industry. Definitely go for it. And my second advice is that, when you're thinking of starting something new or joining an existing business, like look at what Beekaylon is doing, right? A podcast. And who would have expected 5 years back that a traditional textile company podcast karegi? Which also is a testament of the fact that textile companies are progressive. And you can build whatever. Look at our journey. I mean, we would have never expected, even in our wildest dreams, we'll get this kind of attraction, these kind of numbers that we get. So space is large, opportunity is large, sky is the limit, textile applications everywhere, from a contact lenses to aeroplane tires, everywhere, there is a textile application. Look at technical textiles, massive CAGR year on year, right? So more अच्छी opportunity here, as long as you have what it takes to build something, or to kind of join your existing setup or your family business and kind of streamline it further. And there are many case studies of that, like many. So many next generations have joined their existing family business in textiles and have grown the business massively, right? By branding the business, by providing for a better customer experience, by thinking differently.
Okay. Amazing. So, I mean, that's a very good advice. So, I mean, so people who are listening, who are students, who are discouraged with the kind of industry it is, just don't think, jump on it, and there is a lot of potential. So that is done. Now, before I come on to my last question, I had one question about, I mean, I know probably you deal most with Indian textile companies, but you have studied abroad, probably you are exposed to. Can you articulate how Indian market is different from, say, a more matured market, say a US or Europe or Middle East? Is there some clear distinctions do you see between these markets?
So, when we started the podcast, with the fact that, this thing has been delayed for some time. If this would have happened 2 months earlier, and if you would have asked me the same question, my answer would have been much different, because my exposure to textiles globally was very, very low. Like it was at a very nascent stage. But last month, I was traveling to Europe for business. We had the opportunity to be part of the European Parliament to discussion on textile FTAs between India and Europe. That's why I got an opportunity to meet with a lot of textile companies globally, a lot of yarn manufacturing companies in the Europe and from Turkey, from Pakistan, like from different countries. That's why it's actually no different. इंडिया में जो बोलता है ना कि फेस वैल्यू बहुत हाई है, लोगों को चाहिए कि आप उनके ऑफिस जाओ, उनसे बात करो, मिलो रेगुलरली, रिलेशनशिप ड्रिवन है. I realize that most of these international companies in textiles actually insist on that. They wouldn't do business if it's pure online, or if there's no human element or there's no face value to it. So from that perspective, I think it's fairly similar. They want to see who they're dealing with. They want to know the other person. They want to build that confidence by that face value. So in that sense, it's fairly similar. Again, सबकी needs वही है, सबको price, quality और delivery का combination QCD जिसको बोलते हैं, सबको वही चाहिए. So it's fairly similar. Of course, every country will have its a slight flavor which may differ, but at the crux of it, I think it's the same.
Okay, so human behavior remains the same, and that means that how it works remains the more or less the same. Okay, so now we're coming to the last part of the podcast, and obviously, like I'm sure a lot of people are curious about this, so we should also touch upon it. Let's come to.
I hope it's not about Shark Tank.
Let's address the elephant in the room, and See, what I want to know is obviously we have seen seen Shark Tank. We know how popular it is, and and there are a lot of memes and stuff like that are made on it. And your episode also we have seen, and I can tell you and I can vouch for it that the clip of your pitch was being circulated in the entire textile industry, and everyone was watching it and everyone got to know. So it was definitely a great marketing for the Yarn Bazaar. But what I want to know is, uh, 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 before that, how did you like thought of it, and how did you prepare for it? How did you prepare for the pitch? Were there other people involved? Was it your own decision? How did that came about?
The best things in life are never planned.
I agree.
So, to be very honest, I mean, of course, I knew Shark Tank coming to India because we were part of season one. The first run. Grew up watching Shark Tank US, and I would say I've like literally binged on Shark Tank US. I'm always being overwhelmed by it. And I think this is the second time in my life that this happened. Like when I would watch Shark Tank, I would never imagine Shark Tank coming to India. And same while I was growing up, being a huge Metallica fan, I would never imagine Metallica coming to India, which didn't happen in 2011. So, it was a fantastic moment, similar, experience with Shark Tank. So when I realized and came to know that Shark Tank is coming to India, it was a great moment, but I never felt the need of applying because if you look at any formats of Shark Tank globally, whether it's Dragon's Den in the UK, Shark Tank US or Australia or Canada, it's typically more encouraging for D2C brands or consumer facing brands. Like टेक प्लेटफॉर्म्स B2B बिजनेसेस ये बहुत कम रहते हैं या हार्डवेयर कंपनीज है उस तरह की कंपनीज बहुत कम आते हैं of course because ultimately it's a television show and a larger audience will not be able to relate to those kind of complex business models, right? The relatability angle is not be there. So I had no intention of applying for it. A client of the Yarn Bazaar, one of the early clients who then became a very very close friend of mine, very dear friend of mine, started telling me about it. Then it graduated to started nagging about it. Then it came to a point where I had no other option but to just like apply so that he would shut up. And so the application just started with that. Again, no expectation, but I don't know how it happened. Maybe God was very kind to us. We kept graduating to further rounds. Then the semi-final round, and then finally we got a call that we've been shortlisted. Now, the day I'm supposed to walk into the tank and present to the sharks, उसके एक दिन पहले I felt like यार नहीं जाना है because I had spoken to a couple of guys who pitched and they didn't have as good experience, I would say, because the kind of feedback they got was something that very difficult to handle on national television. When you know that the world is watching you and the kind of reaction you're getting from the sharks is not that great. So that led to it, plus a business model. So I had a few thoughts and I was like, yaar, nahi jate hai. I decided not to go. I called up the Shark Tank team. I said, I'm not coming. And they were like, what's wrong with you? Why would you do that? Spoke to a VC friend of mine, runs 3 large funds in India. He again told me the same thing. What's wrong with you? You should definitely go this and that. So, it was a very last minute thing. Again, never planned. Just somehow I was still on the fence, but decided to go. Went there, and surprisingly for us, I think, we got a very good response, like very good response. And even after that, I can tell you, I reached out to the Shark Tank team and I told them, please don't broadcast my episode, please. Like, I don't want it out there. Because my pitch was very long. It was tiring. Of course, I had a great time. It was very fun interacting with all 5 of them. And, you've seen a summary of it in a 12-minute episode. So you can see how the back and forth is happening. But imagine that happening for like as long as 60 minutes. So I felt कि यार वो 60 minutes plus pitch को एक television format में convert करके वो justification नहीं मिलेगा शायद. And audience को नहीं समझेगा because the model is so complex. The questions they were asking were very technical, right? पता नहीं मतलब somewhere I was not confident. So I requested them not to do it. But I think the way they've cut the episode, right? The editing just turned out to be so great, so great. So definitely not planned, never expected this to happen, and very lucky it did.
Was it nerve-wracking in the sense, were you nervous before the shoot, or you probably didn't know that how big it'll be? Or, how was it the night before and the day of the shoot?
Well, not at all, because, since I grew up, playing music and did a few live gigs also. So that confident element was always there. So उस angle में कुछ ये था नहीं. Like, if you look at my episode also, it seems like we are having fun because I'm just standing there and I'm like, yeah, I'm just talking to 5 people, right? We pitched to VCs before we entered the tank, right? We had certain commitments once before we entered the tank. Correct. So even that conversation, interacting with a potential investor and how to deal with their questions and all, I think by the time you walked in the tank, you were very comfortable with that line of questioning.
Okay. So if I remember,
only thing that kind of stressed me out The only thing that really stressed me out was the fact that I had to do the entire pitch in Hindi.
Oh,
And
okay.
ऐसा नहीं कि हिंदी मतलब आई हैव अ डिसेंट कमांड ऑन हिंदी बट द थिंग इज जब आप बिजनेस पिच कर रहे हो तो आपका पूरा का पूरा वो कॉन्वर्सेशन इंग्लिश में ही हुआ है हमेशा.
Correct. Correct.
उसको हिंदी
Uh,
में बोलना, यू कैन यू से B2B, यू हैव टू से बिजनेस टू बिजनेस बिकॉज टेलीविजन ऑडियंस विल नॉट अंडरस्टैंड दीस स्लैंग्स. वो सब
yeah.
चीज को कॉन्शियसली ध्यान रखना एंड मेकिंग श्योर कि यू डोंट एंड अप सेइंग फ्रेजेस और स्लैंग्स या और इंग्लिश, दैट वाज स्लाइटली डिफिकल्ट.
And you were on your own also, so I'm sure that also put some pressure. So if I remember correctly, from the episode, it was Aman, Piyush, and Anupam that invested in your startup.
And
So
Ashni
how
as
has
well.
life and Ashneer as well. So how has life changed? And if you can tell us post Shark Tank experience, you can choose to, I mean, say how whatever you feel is right on a public platform. So how has life changed? How has the interactions been with them? Has it really helped apart from the marketing that you definitely would have got from the show?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I would have not realized the benefit of having founders turned angels as investors because, prior to the time, we were always looking for funds, like VC funds, uh, large investor groups, right? जो venture capital funds जिसको बोलते हैं. And after that journey, we realized that when there is a founder who's backing your business, someone who's really been there, done that, built a large business, like look at all of them, whether it's BharatPay, Lenskart, Boat, or Shadi.com, these are large category creators or large business in their segment. They come in with a very high empathy. So there is something called KEN, KEN, which stands for Knowledge Empathy Network. Right? The moment you have these kind of people, the KEN value is very, very high, which really changed my entire perspective. Like it changed to, such a great extent that the current round that we announced about 2 months back, I think exactly 2 months back, we announced on 19th June our pre-series A. We made sure that we have a very high entrepreneur turned angel investor representation on the cap table. Because the problem solving journey is very different. So although we have a VC also on the cap table, but there is a decent pool of, these founders who have also backed us in this round. So that's the kind of impact that, Shark Tank investment had on us.
Okay. And whose idea was it to move you to Bangalore? Was it your idea or was it Piyush or one of these guys?
So, the start of this thought actually, initiated by Piyush. My first meeting with him after the tank, my first meeting, right? And he's like, Pratik, Mumbai mein kya kar rahe ho? Bangalore. So that's how it started. Then, of course, it took some time. We tried to do it in Mumbai. Finally, it came to a stage where we felt that, yeah, Bangalore is the right place for us to be.
Okay. Okay. That's great. Acha, last thing before we go, if you can say something about your relationship with Beekaylon and how, I mean, do you only know them because of Yarn Bazaar or have you heard about them before Yarn Bazaar? If you can just, say a few things about Beacon. I also saw, by the way, on your website, there is an article about polyester yarns and it does feature Beekaylon as one of the top manufacturers in India.
To be very honest, at the Yarn Bazaar, we've never interacted with anyone at Beekaylon. And that's very unfortunate because, we should. But I have a very, very, kind memory of Beekaylon because like I said, with my father's business as a young kid, I remember once I walked into their office as a young kid with my father. And I remember that entire incident very well, their entire meeting and how it went. So in my father's business, being a fabric manufacturer, there was a time when his core focus was on polyester filament segment. तो हम लोग टेक्स बाय टेक्स का जो कपड़ा बोलते हैं वो बनाते थे तो काफी टेक्सटाइल धागा खरीद. So Beekaylon was one of our suppliers and if I'm not mistaken, we had a agent in between. And वो agent के साथ ही मैं, पापा और वो agent हम तीनों Beekaylon के ऑफिस गए थे. तो yeah, I've always, when the Yarn Bazaar started, my number one category that I wanted to focus on was polyester filament because family business में काफी polyester filament का काम किया था. But again, great things are never planned. We ended up starting with cotton category and polyester filament with उतना ज़्यादा focus कर नहीं पाए. But now we have a clear focus on, starting this segment also.
Okay, great. So thank you, Pratik, for being a part of this podcast. It was a lovely conversation and good to interact with another young fellow who's from the textile industry. I mean, I have been doing textile work since, last 10 years, and I've only interacted with, people who have spent years in this industry, and it has been, let's just say, sometimes boring, sometimes interesting. So it was really, really fun chatting with you, and all the best wishes in the world for Yarn Bazaar. It's a great idea. The industry is absolutely ready for disruption. When I saw the Shark Tank episode, I mean, I was like, wow, okay, so there are people thinking about, changing this industry. So best of luck, and, may Yarn Bazaar reach wherever you want it to reach, and, it outlasts you. And good luck, and thank you again for being a part of this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for such kind wishes and, for having me here. Wonderful questions and getting, a chance to, share the journey with the larger textile audience, which I'm hoping this platform would allow. So really, really thank you so much for this.
Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, my name is Pratik Gadia. I'm the founder of the Yarn Bazaar. I hope all of you watch the podcast Spinning Valleys by Beekaylon, and I hope you guys like it. Do follow Beekaylon on all the social media handles. Great company doing some great work. If you're a buyer, or if you're a yarn buyer buying polyester filament yarns, texturized yarn, do work with Beekaylon. Again, a great company, and I hope you like the podcast. Thank you so much.